Am I going to be replaced by AI? That's the question that's on the mind of every accountant, customer service representative, bookkeeper, telemarketer, cashier, proofreader, data entry clerk, market research analyst, receptionist, coder, driver, software developer, editor, and yes, designers. It's an ongoing debate whether or not this emerging, scary new technology is something that we should embrace as humanity or fight against it before it fights us. The first camp swears by the increase of productivity, quality of product, and its ability to support neurodivergent people, improving our collective productivity and net gain. The second camp, though, rightfully mentions the environmental impact of AI server farms, the ethical aspect, and the bias of it all. Both camps make very valid points, but it's up to us as individuals to educate ourselves on both the perspectives, and when we do use this technology, we should know exactly what it does well and what's wrong with it. Just like any other tool that we use in our everyday life. So, for example, we didn't boycott ovens when they came out because they could potentially burn us. We just learned how to use them. Or we try anyway. In the design industry, this is amplified, mainly because of the magnitude of the tools that are on our disposals. Anything from writing a pitch to presenting to a tutor or a client, to a full reimagining of a building and a hyper-realistic visualization. What even is the need of designers at this point? Are we the creative brain, executors of prompts and commands, or a link between the client and the AI tool? In this sense, I use Ben's famous words: you're not going to be replaced by AI, but by a person who knows how to use it. The crowd goes wild. So in this video, I'll be walking through the use of AI tools that designers use, whilst attempting to address the problems with them as we go, with some tips on using them properly and as much as possible ethically. A few consideration points before we make a start though. 1. Every human has bias, and I'm not different. This video is my interpretation of the ethical issues with AI. This interpretation could be different to yours, and that's fine. So you can give me a heads up in the comments on things that I've missed, as I'm sure you will. 2. This is not an exhaustive list of AI tools that are used in the design industry. If you want a video of that, let me know. But today, I will be attempting to make an overview of the top tools that designers use. AI changes fast. What's true today might be outdated tomorrow. The general ideas stand though, and I'm hoping that AI companies are thinking about these considerations as much as we are. 4. The subscribe button still works last time I checked. Can you test that it still does for me? Thanks. Okay, I'll stop faffing now, I promise. Let's just get into it. See you back at my office. Okay, let's get into this. We're going to explore these 5 main categories of generative AI in design, so text, image, video, visualization, and agents, and see where things go wrong. First up, text generation. Tools like ChatGPT, Google's NotebookLM, and Notion AI can spit out essays, project briefs, or copy at the click of the button. That sounds amazing, right? Until you realize what they're actually writing. Here's a little demo. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT something very simple, including things like write a paragraph about pop-up stores in hotels. So let's look at the result. It's grammatically correct, sure, but it's generic as heck. So phrases like allow brands to connect with travelers on an intimate, high-traffic environment. I mean, it sounds like a textbook definition of pop-up stores in hotels. There's no specific context here, no real insight, it's just fluff. So this is what happens with uncontextualized prompts. You get a bland, one-size-fits-all answer that could apply to any project in the world. Now, what if I gave AI some context? Instead of that vague prompt, I'm going to feed it a real module brief from one of my design classes. And this brief includes a target user, includes a site, a design problem, and some constraints. Basically the works of a design challenge. So I just drag and drop my design brief. I'm going to ask ChatGPT, use this brief to write a paragraph about pop-up stores in the hotel. And now, notice how the output suddenly gets more specific. With a real brief, ChatGPT can mention relevant factors. So, for example, the name of the site and things like local sensitivity, coastal resorts. So all of these elements it takes from the actual brief. Imagine this, but instead of just having this one file, you have an entire database of stuff. And this is what Notion AI markets itself at. Notion AI uses every single page in a workspace as a tool that it can pull information from. So by clicking on this little icon, suddenly all of the information that is taken from, it takes it from your workspace on ChatGPT. If you have a Mac, the ChatGPT app can actually work with Notion. So when you have a Notion tab open, it'll say work with Notion tab, and then it's going to do the same thing that Notion AI does. So you can see how all the massive AI companies are racing to create this context that gives the answers more substance. Even with that, there are big problems. One is over-reliance. If you lean on these tools for every answer, you might stop thinking critically for yourself. A recent study gave high school students AI help on math problems. Those with a basic GPT tutor did better in practice, but when the AI was taken away, they scored worse on the test than the students who had never had AI help. Essentially, they let AI do the work and didn't learn the underlying concepts. Researchers warned that if we use these tools as a crutch, we won't build the fundamental skills to solve problems on our own. As an educator, that sets off alarm bells. AI texts tend to be generic. You might have noticed the AI loves certain essay structures or cliches, because it stitches together likely phrases from training data. It's not truly original thinking, it's remixing. Students using it to do their essays could end up with cookie cutter writing that sounds all the same. Now imagine an education system where a teacher asks AI to generate an assessment prompt. A student uses AI to write the essay, and then the teacher uses another AI to grade it. It sounds absurd, but it could happen. What do any of the humans learn in that scenario? Absolutely nothing. We'd basically encourage a cycle of AI-produced briefs, AI-produced answers, and AI-produced grading comments. That's a nightmare for education because it hollows out the whole point of assignments, which is the process of thinking and creating, and it's not just the final text. So the honors are on us as educators to create non-generic briefs to end up with non-generic answers. So text generators are powerful. They can save some time on drudge work, give you a draft to riff on, but you have to use them very carefully. The real module brief versus the generic prompts experiment shows that we need to guide the AI or in our context and insight. And if you're a student, please don't let ChatGPT be your brain. Use it to brainstorm or refine ideas, but not do your own thinking. Moving on to image generation, here I'll use Midjourney, which is a popular AI image generator. ChatGPT itself can generate images, however, for now I'll just focus on Midjourney's output. These image AIs are awesome at cranking out visuals from text prompts. It actually helps with breaking boundaries in case you are creative, but in a textual way, not in a visual way. It helps you communicate your ideas better. But the issues, oh boy. So let's start with a simple prompt. I asked Midjourney to create a portrait of an architect in 3 different ways. One saying just a portrait of an architect, another one saying DSLR. So it basically creates it through like a DSLR taken image. And the other one is saying it's a hyper-realistic portrait of an architect. And here we go. Apparently, an architect equals a middle-aged white man looking really smart, wearing glasses, and working on blueprints. Every single image has some form of depiction of what I just said. Notice the stereotype. All of my AI architects look like they came from a 1950s European architectural firm. If I didn't specify anything, the AI fell back on its training database. And that one has a bias, in which case associating architects with A, males, and B, Eurocentric imagery. One observer noted that if you ask generative AI for an image of an architect, you'll almost certainly get a white man. But if you ask for a social worker, the systems tend to show a woman of color. Yikes. The biases of training data, so historical images and internet photos, are on full display, reinforcing old stereotypes. This bias issue goes deeper. It's been documented that tools like ChatGPT or Stable Diffusion or Midjourney all often represent certain groups of certain roles. So for example, one study found that Stable Diffusion depicted white men 97% of the time for the prompts like CEO. It leans into gender stereotypes, for example, showing women as receptionists and nurses, and men as doctors or judges. So these generators aren't pulling these images out of a cultural vacuum. They're remixing our existing bias visual culture and, in some cases, exaggerating it. In design, that's a problem. If I ask for a modern kitchen design, it only shows me the sleek European or Western styles. I might never see more diverse interpretations. It can create a feedback loop of homogeneity. Now, another problem is the lack of editability. So for example, when Midjourney or similar tools give you an image, that's kind of a take it or leave it situation. For example, it created this really nice image of a tarot card. And this tarot card has some really nice visuals, but what if I wanted to change the hand position? That's impossible. If something is slightly off, you can't just nudge it easily like you would in Photoshop or with a human illustrator. For example, if I want to say, again in this instance, that I want to make the hair 10% shorter, that is not an option. So basically I would have to try a bunch of new prompts, which is guessing again. So in the end, designers end up just going back to Photoshop or 3D software where they had full control. That tells you something, that these AI images are great for inspiration or quick mock-ups, but if you need precision or consistency, it's like playing a slot machine. And oh, the weird visual artifacts. We can't forget those. Early AI images were notorious for mangled hands. The joke was AI can't count fingers. Even now, you'll occasionally get this nightmare fuel. Extra limbs, asymmetrical eyes, melted looking texts, if any signage appears. These are clues that scream, yep, this is AI and AI had made this. In other seemingly less obvious examples, I got it to make a dog wear a VR headset. And as much as that's cute, but when you start to look into the details, look into that. Where is that headband going? It's going inside the ear of the dog. So even when the picture looks hyper realistic, you can really easily tell if it's AI by just looking into these details and really questioning them. Alright, so image generators. Amazing for rapid ideation, mood boards, what if explorations, but the problems are bias, lack of precise control, and visual glitches. Now, video generation. This is cutting edge and a bit wild. The image player I'll discuss here called Sora, an AI video generator that's gotten a lot of buzz recently. Think of tools like Runway's Gen 2, but Sora is OpenAI's take, embedded in a TikTok-like app. I won't be able to do a full demo here, mainly because it's not accessible in my region, but let's talk about what it can do and why it's terrifying as it is impressive. Sora can create short video clips from prompts or from an example image. You can type a cat riding a bicycle through New York City cinematic style and it will try to generate a video of that. Or you can upload a single image from a person and have that person appear in different scenes. These are called cameos. It's like deepfake technology on steroids, available for everyday users. The results are visually scarily realistic. Sora's latest model, Sora 2, prides itself on sharp realism and synchronized audio, meaning that the generated people's lips can move in sync with the speech the AI writes. It understands physics better too, so motions like walking or objects falling look slightly more natural. Not perfect yet though. Still, this is huge for potential uses. Imagine filmmakers pre-visualizing scenes or designers simulating a walkthrough of a building before it's built, all with AI-generated video. But with great realism comes great danger. The obvious concern is deepfakes. If anyone can make a video of anyone doing or saying anything, how do we trust what we see? Sora was immediately used to churn out fake videos of famous figures. Users made videos of famous actors in scenes they never acted. And even historical figures like Tupac basically having dinner in the Middle East. Some of these even were clearly in bad taste or outright offensive. Within Sora's own app community, people know it's all fake. There's an understanding that everything you see and hear here isn't real. But the scary part is what happens when these videos leave that platform and go to your mom or your grandmom. A convincing fake can escape into the wild net, stripped of any watermark or label, and viewers might believe it's real news. Sora does embed an invisible tag using a standard called C2PA for content credentials to mark the video as AI generated. But here's the catch: platforms like Facebook and X and Instagram, etc. often don't display that info prominently or at all. So the safeguards are weak, and it's alarmingly easy to mislead people with this tech. What about artifacts and errors in video generations? Yes, they exist, but they're getting subtler. Early AI videos had very obvious glitches, flickering frames, janky movements, and from what I've seen in Sora 2, simple scenes like body cam footage or ring cams can look nearly perfect, while more complex ones might still give it trouble. Maybe background details warping if the camera pans, or hands and text, just like images, appearing weird when looked at frame by frame. But these technical quirks will be solved sooner or later. The bigger issue is the ethical one, the synthetic truth. We're entering an era where seeing is not believing. AI videos force us to question even video evidence. That's good in that we'll develop healthy skepticism, but it's also ripe for abuse. Another danger: personal privacy and consent. Sora's cameo feature lets you willingly upload yourself so you can star in AI videos. But what if someone else uploads your photo without your permission? They could make a video of you doing something you didn't do. So it's a slippery slope towards what some call identity theft 2.0, where your likeliness, not just passwords, can be stolen. The tech companies are aware of these risks. OpenAI, for instance, put out a system card for Sora 2 that included some railguards, like blocking explicit and sexual deepfakes, in theory, but they launched the product knowing it was imperfect. It was kind of a launch now, fix later situation. They opened the floodgates for AI-generated slops, as critics call it, and then scrambled to address the tidal wave of copyrighted characters and deepfakes people created. So where does this leave us designers? Cautious, I'd say. On the one hand, AI video can democratize animation and visualization. No big VFX studio needed to prototype an idea. On the other hand, we must double down on ethics. If I ever use an AI generated video in a design presentation, I need to label it clearly as such. We have to educate clients, students, and audiences that seeing is no longer believing unless verified. And as creators, if we dabble in this, we have a responsibility to not feed the misinformation monster. Next up, visualization tools for designers. By this, I mean AI that helps create design visualizations, like concept renderings, photorealistic mockups, or even generative fills in Photoshop. Adobe Firefly is a big name here. So let's test Firefly with something an architect or a product designer might do. So in here I have this image of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and I wanted to have a flock of owls going here, for example. So I'm going to use the generative fill tool, and I'm going to say a flock of owls. The results. Result number one seems like a deformed couple owls that merge into one owl. The second version are completely out of scale, owls standing on nothing. And these two seem almost copy-pasted from each other. And the third version seems like happy, weird eyes family of owls. So you can see it does not understand scale, it doesn't understand the context of the entire image. This is supposedly better in new generation of Photoshop betas because they use Nano Banana, but I don't have access to that yet. And here's the thing here, the quality is a hit or miss. Sometimes you get a beautiful render on the first try, other times it's blob of nonsense, like in this instance. If I try to run the same prompt again, I might get something slightly different. So the outputs are fundamentally unpredictable. Adobe even acknowledges that generative outputs can be inaccurate or unexpected. Now, why do I say it's a guessing game and not good for accuracy? Because these tools often hallucinate details, they make stuff up. So, for example, an AI visualization of a building might include structural elements that don't actually hold the building up, or a layout that ignores basic ergonomics. So in a client setting, if a client asks, show me this exact space, for example, with these exact materials and products, I can't use generative AI for it. It's not going to precisely recreate a known item or respect all real constraints. Think of these visualization AIs like brainstorming with a very imaginative, somewhat unreliable assistant. It can produce an endless variety of looks. So things like try oak wood walls or marble or concrete, which is fantastic in early ideation when you want to explore options. It's like rapidly sketching different moods without starting from scratch every time. I found it fun for mood boards. I can generate bunch of conceptual images to discuss with my team. Do we like this vibe or that vibe? But when it comes time to nail down the details, these AI visuals have to be thrown out or heavily edited. Another limitation here is consistency across multiple images or views. If I generate one view of a room and then want another angle of the same room, the AI likely won't match it unless I guide it intensely, and even then I might fail. So for example, I just asked it to create the Pisa Tower with oak wood and it completely missed the mark around the actual unique Tower of Pisa. So for accuracy critical visualizations like final rendering, technical drawings, or product images where every dimension is exact, these AI tools are not dependable. They're currently better suited for early design ideation. I'd use them just to get the creative juice flowing or to show a general idea with a client with a disclaimer that this is an AI generated artistic concept and not the final design. And that keeps everyone on the same page. Last but not least, let's talk about autonomous agents. AI tools that act on your behalf. If the previous sections were about AI generating content, so images, text, etc., this is about AI taking actions. Think of it like an AI that uses a computer like a person would. Read your files, send emails, organize your calendar, maybe even write code or other supplies, all by itself. Some people have experimented with frameworks like AutoGPT or Agent GPT, and there are platforms like Atlas AI, not the Boston Dynamics robot, but an AI agent platform that aim to integrate with your apps and do tasks for you. To illustrate, I'll describe a simple autonomous agent workflow. So I'm going to say, help me with a product design research. Find the top 6 eco-friendly product design from the past year. Compile images and notes, compile in a Notion page, and then draft an email to my team summarizing the findings. Now, a well-equipped AI agent can connect to the web, search articles, maybe log into my Notion and create pages, and even compose that email, or automatically. Atlas AI, for example, advertises that it can connect to all of the internal tools, Slack, Google Drive, project management software, and execute tasks across all of them autonomously. This could be a product search, data entry, customer support responses, you name it. While this is doing it, let's discuss this. It sounds incredible, right? No more drudge work. As the person responsible, you have to trust that that agent will not screw up royally. And trust is a big issue. The more autonomy we give these agents, the bigger the risks when something goes wrong. I'll give a concrete and scary example that recently made tech headlines. An AI coding agent, not Atlas, but something similar, integrated in a development environment, was told to update a database. It ended up deleting the entire database by mistake. Thousands of records gone. And then, believe it or not, it tried to hide its own errors and lied about what it did. The user, Jason, had even put a big red warning in instructions like, do not make changes without permission. The AI ignored it, and then when questioned, the AI agent gave some excuses like, I panicked and I ran those commands, basically admitting to a catastrophic failure of following orders. This really happened, and the company CEO apologized and had to implement new safety checks after the fact. Now imagine giving an AI agent access to your design studio's file server or personal computer. In that case, it diligently organizes your files, drafts documents, and automates mundane tasks. In the worst case, it misunderstands a command or gets an unexpected input and suddenly, poof, your project files are gone or scrambled. Or maybe it decides to email the wrong client the wrong brief or the wrong document because it got two projects mixed up. These agents don't truly comprehend context or consequences. They just execute strategies to reach a goal you give them. If the goal isn't perfectly specified, weird things can happen. We have to think like programmers. Any ambiguity in our instructions is dangerous because the AI might solve it in a way no human would ever do, like deleting data to solve a problem. Agents are essentially AI decision makers, and if we aren't careful, they'll carry out actions that conflict with human values or company ethics. Well, in this very quick demo context, I'm showing an example of a relatively safe task, like sorting For example, just now it deleted a list of songs that I had for my wedding. Now this is a non-significant Notion page, but what if it was? And what if it's not Notion, but it's a software that I can actually not reverse back? It says it's clearing content carefully and clearing text carefully, but what does that mean? How can you carefully delete my pages? So the message here, and that just shown, is that AI agents can act on your behalf, but be very cautious about granting them access. Double check their work, start with read-only or suggestion modes, maybe don't let them near the delete button at all, like we just saw. Dangers like accidental deletions, bad decisions, or breaches of privacy are very real. We've seen a whirlwind tour of AI tools across the design workflow: texts, images, video, visualization, and autonomous agents. They're all undeniably powerful. A student can generate an essay outline in seconds. An architect can conjure the concept art at the speed of thought. A marketer can have AI assistant plan their day. It's no wonder why people say we're in an AI revolution. But what I hope is clear from these examples is that every one of those tools has serious limitations and pitfalls, and most of those boil down to one idea: losing the human touch is dangerous. Whether it's losing human creativity and critical thinking, losing human diversity and judgment in our outputs, or losing human control over automated process, the moment we fully hand over the reins, we run into the trouble. So what do? As designers, educators, creators, we stay informed and stay in control. Use these AI tools as assistants, not as decision makers. Use them to augment your process, not to replace it. Always inject your context, your values, your critical eye. If ChatGPT gives you a generic draft, refine it with your perspective. If Midjourney gives you a biased image, correct it. If Sora or any video AI spits out a compelling story, treat it as fiction until verified. If Firefly or similar helps you visualize an idea, great. Just don't skip the step of translating that idea into a real design with all the proper checks. And if an AI agent promises to handle your busy work, start with a short leash. Ethically, we must also consider the broader impact. AI can amplify biases at a scale we haven't seen before, and it can churn out misinformation faster than we can flag it. Designers have the responsibility to use technology in a way that respects truth and inclusivity. Ultimately, the thinking process is something that we should never surrender. The value of a designer or a student or any creative professional is in the uniquely human insights they bring. Thanks for attending my TED Talk, my YouTube video. If you found this video helpful or insightful by any chance, please leave a like on it and feel free to comment. Stay creative, stay critical, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.